Hello, everybody. How's it going? It's me, Krendor, and welcome back to Krendor Talks in front of a shitty green screen. Today, I'm talking Seraphon because we're only a few months away from a new book. Whether that's May or June, probably seems to be the most realistic. I would imagine the other death tomes are coming in like April. They seem to be pumping these books out pretty quickly. So that's nice at least. And I'm excited because, not only do we have the new models, but we're getting a new book. And the last book was right before COVID hit. So this book is literally 3 years old. I remember playing one game with that book, and then everything getting shut down. So this book is like 3 years old. It's actually an older book in comparison to a lot of the newer ones. And I'm pretty excited to see what they do because there's a lot of things that are really good in this book and a lot of things that are, probably in need of changing or just bad. So I kind of want to give my opinion, my wish list, what I'm looking for, trying to be realistic about certain things as well. And, because this is my favorite Warhammer faction, right? Like, I love Skaven. I love Beast of Chaos. I love Nurgle. I love all these armies I play, the Gits and all this stuff. But Seraphon and, the lizard men, they were why I got into Warhammer when I was like 12 or 13 years old, right? They're why I got into Blood Bowl. I wanted to play lizard men I would have played Blood Bowl anyway with TB and all them, but it's why I got back into Warhammer. I was like, dude, I can go back and paint these Seraphon, and then I really got into it, and now here I am playing like 15 armies, and I don't have a problem. So the big things I want to go over are kind of just battle traits, then some War Scroll stuff, and I don't really talk about like artifact. I'll talk a little bit about artifacts and those types of things, but mainly just the issues that I have with the current Battletome and things that I'd like to see improved and things that I'd like to stay. So, without further ado, let's talk about it a bit. So, I've played it a lot. I've seen other people. I've played against it, and so here's some of the things I noticed right away. So you can tell this book's like a 2.0 book because it's kind of broken up weird, if that makes sense. So in 3.0, a lot of things have become simplified for good reason. It's a lot of people hear simplification, they're like, oh, they're dumbing it down. But a lot of times it's just making it more convenient for the players, right? For example, okay, so the top battle trait you have at Seraphon is at the end of your hero phase, you can pick a friendly slan and replace the spell they know from the lore with another spell. So, that's cool, but that's also something you could literally just put on the slan's War Scroll, right? Like, the slan can replace spells, right? That doesn't need to be like a battle trait. Although, I guess you could argue it could be a battle trait, but, this to me feels like something that should just be on a War Scroll, right? And that seems to be a common occurrence, right? A lot of things that used to just be off War Scrolls are now on War Scrolls or, extremely simplified in terms of, wording, right? And it's been nice. I've enjoyed it quite a bit. So the next thing we have is Sacred Asterisms. And I think Sacred Asterisms is actually really cool, but I think they could mix it up a bit. So currently you can pick, in combat, pick a friendly Seraphon hero. It gets +1 to its melee weapons. That'd be cool if the melee heroes weren't garbage. Add 1 to run in charge rolls for Seraphon units. That's really good. And then add 1 to your casting if you're a wizard. So for the most part, you generally are picking run and charge if you're Coalesced, or you're picking +1 to your casting if you're not Coalesced. Even if you are Coalesced, you're probably still taking +1 to casting. It just depends. I would take +1 to casting off this list. I would just give the slans +3 to cast, and then they can. There might be another way you can give them +1 to cast, but I feel like the Sacred Asterisms should be something that benefits every iteration of the army, right? I think add 1 to run in charge rolls is good, because even if you're playing Starborn or Coalesced, right, you can benefit from running and charging. Right, they're just good things, right? So I think, and then I think instead of having in the combat phase pick a friendly Seraphon hero, maybe make that a friendly Seraphon unit to have +1 to their attack characteristic melee weapons. That would probably be maybe a little too strong, but still, it's this would be a powerful battle trait you're doing, right? You're every turn being like, this unit's going to get super buffed, right? Now, I just don't want some, like, shitty hero to get it. Like, let me pick a unit, right? Let my Kroak get it if they get buffed up to this, you know, well, if they get new models. I'm pretty sure they are. You know, I think that would be more fun. That's saying if they even, like, keep this. They might just change out all these battle traits completely. Like, I don't know. But that's what I would do if I were to change it up. And then, you know, add something new for the magic one, right? There's probably a bunch of stuff you do. But I think there's a lot of fun ways you can play around with it. But adding one to casting just feels like it should just be built into the War Scroll, right? That's how I feel. A lot of times it feels like these things should just be built in. So that's the main one. Then Starborn. The big thing with Starborn is summoning. And from what we've seen in 3.0, summoning has been nerfed. And I love it. I will tell you right now, I'm not a big summoning person. I don't mind summoning, but I don't like a lot of summoning, if that makes sense, right? Like, I don't mind if it's like, oh, you know, I summon in one game, let's say I managed to summon like some skinks, and then I summon like a mediocre unit, like a unit of, I don't know, what do we got here? Like a unit of Saurus Guard, or like maybe you save up enough and instead of summoning two, you know, a small and a medium thing, you summon like a dinosaur, right? A Bastiladon, right? I think that's cool, where it's like, all right, I work up all these points to summon one thing. But I feel like the list is going to get shortened. Like, I would bet large amounts of money they are going to shorten this list of like 50 units on it. And I think that's good. Like, I've noticed that in every book so far that I've seen for 3.0, and it really is nice. And I think the nicest part is you don't have to bring your entire army everywhere you go. I think they've realized this. It is really annoying to bring your entire army because you're like, I might have to summon it, right? And it's also annoying because if you're the player playing against the person summoning, you just have to be ready for them to summon literally anything, and you have to be ready for just like, you know, to get constant points generated against you. Plus, I've heard this point made as well, which is they have to account for summoning, right? They're like, this player is probably going to summon a lot, and so in order to do that, they make War Scrolls inherently weaker a lot of the times, right? So I think, you know, give us less to summon. You know, controversial opinion if you like summoning. But I would prefer to have less summoning and, you know, have it be like meaningful summoning. That's only, you know, a couple times a game or one big thing or something like that, right? Depending on what you want. I love Lords of Space and Time. That's been in there since like the old Seraphon book before the 2.0 one, where you had to use your general's handbook. It was literally a GHB, was the Seraphon Battletome. It was super janky, which is fantastic. I think it's cool. Teleport, neat. And then they have Bravery of 10 instead of their War Scroll. Like, okay, that should be, again, this should just be a thing. Like, I don't know. Like, I just feel like that's such a like unexciting thing. Like, anything bravery is just really, that should just be, it should be a side dish, right? Like, that shouldn't be one of your key Starborn battle traits. That should be like, oh, and you can have 10 bravery. Like, there should be something else in here that's really kind of, you know, more like magical, right? You're Starborn. I don't know. That's how I feel with that. Then Coalesced is the other big one, right? So Coalesced, they add one to the attack characteristic of their jaws. I think that's neat. That's probably something that could stay. They ignore modifiers to bravery again. Cool, I guess. They have the terrain feature thing. Please get rid of that. Nobody even like uses terrain stuff. Age of Sigmar terrain is terrible. It's only good for like, you know, getting a guy out of line of sight or something, or like making something go around something. It has like no actual good purpose, unlike 40k terrain where you have to like not get shot. And then the big one is Scaly Skin, where it's -1 damage from each attack, which I think does need to be changed. They've already changed it once so that skinks can't get it in Coalesced. It used to be like army wide and it was busted. I remember I had like 10 or 20 skinks that just didn't die. Like, it was insane. Like, because all the damage just went down to 1, and then, you know, they were saving on like, I don't know, 4s or 5s with all the buffs or whatever, and then like it was crazy. And you give them the 6-up ward with the Astral nearby. Like, I don't know, man. I think there is a good way to kind of keep this. I think what they would do is instead of the entire army getting -1 damage, I think maybe you give the Saurus warriors getting +1 wound. That seems to be a common theme they've done with a lot of infantry as well, is giving them a bonus wound, maybe giving them another point of save if they have shields, which they do. So maybe the Saurus. What is the Saurus warrior's current profile? Here it is. It is 5-inch move, 1 wound, 4 up save, 8 bravery. So like you probably bump it to like 6 or 7-inch move, 2 wounds. Probably a 3 up save. I think they just become tankier. Maybe you just build that in, right? Because this is accounting for the fact that you're probably doing -1 damage, right? So just give them the 3 up save, and then maybe make it so if you're Coalesced, they get like a ward, right? Like a 6 up ward on top of that. So then you have a 3 up save with a 6 up ward. So you still have that kind of scaly skin. I guess there are, with the new skink priest, he can give out wards, so that's a way to get a ward. But there's various other options. Like you give them buffs from the heroes if the heroes are good. But I think keeping -1 damage would be good for something like a Battletome, right? I think that's where it belongs. I think if you have a big, tanky monster, you can be like, you know what, the Battletom's -1 damage. And maybe the Battletome, either that or it has like a 4-up ward or something, right? Something that keeps it tanky. Because that's the whole thing. Like, it's scaly skin, so they're tanky. They're more durable than other monsters. So you have to have some sort of defensive thing. But it does seem like ward rolls are the way they're going with this, and I think that's fine. So I think, I think that would also help, honestly, because it would help negate mortal wounds. Like, I would actually rather have on a Battletome a 4-up ward than a -1 damage. Like, I think just being able to negate mortal wounds, because that's like one of their biggest weaknesses in Seraphon is just mortal wounds. And there's so many things to do mortal wounds now. I literally play, Gits and Beast of Chaos. They like shit out mortal wounds, man. Like literally Gits are like charging into stuff and doing mortal wounds. Scragrot's casting spells for mortal wounds. Beast of Chaos, you're charging in Doom or a Bulgor pack and Doom Bulls. They're just straight up doing like, oh, you just took like 8 mortal wounds on the charge. Like you can literally just blow up all these monsters like they're nothing. It doesn't even matter they have -1 damage. So I think the ward in the long run would actually be better. So that's kind of my battle trait overview, right? Let me know if you agree or disagree, but I think that would be a nice little change. So, and it would probably be less annoying for a lot of armies that have 2 damage and they want to go down to 1. Or they go down to 1, because it's not fun to play against. So I've literally just played against it numerous times, and it's just like, I guess all my damage gets dropped down to 1. So it's at least if it's on a ward up or a ward save, and you have to roll like a 4-up or a 5-up or whatever it is, you're at least making your opponent be active and roll the dice, and it's like, oh, maybe they rolled well and they block it, right? They're tanky. But if they're not, they're like, oh, I bypassed your tanky skin or something like that, right? I don't know. I think it's more fun. -1 damage is just like, it almost feels lazy in a way. Or maybe you can even build it into a hero, like maybe the Old Blood or the Sunblood or someone like can once per turn give 1 unit -1 to damage against that unit. That could be a way to keep it as well. So I don't know, we'll see. Then you have your artifacts and command traits, and they're okay. There's not much I want to say about them. Usually they keep a couple, they get rid of a couple, and they like revamp some. So I mean, I don't care about artifacts and command traits as long as they're either viable in terms of like they're good, or they have some sort of like fun use. That's kind of my 2 big things, right? There's really good, there's good, like it's good in competitive play and a lot of people are gonna take it. There's viable, which is like, hey, you know what? If I want to run some dumb list, you're probably not gonna run this in a tournament. But if you want to like, you're having fun, you want to take this artifact command trait to have fun. Or if you want to, maybe it's a very unique, I think that's another thing, is if you want to build like a unique list, a very, kind of specific list, it allows you to do that. I think those are the best command traits and artifacts. But the worst ones are just the bad ones, right? The ones that are just like, once per battle on a 3-up, do D3 mortal wounds to something. Like, something that's just, like, terrible. And it's like, why would I do this? Like, it's essentially being like, have a worse stomp once per game. Or, like some of those are just, like, you can do that, or you can, like, on a 2-up, make someone last strike. And it's like, boy, I wonder which I'm going to do. The last strike on a 2-up, or, like, on a 3-up, I do D3 mortal wounds once per battle, or D6 mortal wounds. Like, sometimes they're just, I'm like, what are you doing? And, like, it doesn't provide any, like, unique kind of interaction, right? Like, they could, play around that at least somewhat, but it's just straight up, like, do an ability that half the units in the game just do. Like, my Dragon Ogres on a 2-up do D3 at the end of combat, but I'm going to take an artifact to do, like, you know what I mean? Like, how does it even make it into the book? It's not, like, thematic. It's not fun. It's just dumb. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, people would rather just take the generic artifacts of, like, a 6-up ward or, like, arcane whatever that makes you a wizard. I'd rather be a wizard that casts, like, Mystic Shield, because you're getting +1 defense, or you can cast Arcane Bolt or Flaming Weapon or whatever. It's just better. Like, why would I do some bad ones? So, like, I don't know. That's all I gotta say about them. Subfactions, I think there could be fun ways to implement the subfactions, because right now they're a little old school and new school, because, like, it seems like a lot of the newer subfactions are just very small bonuses, or giving you different ways to play the army, right? A lot of times a subfaction changes your battle line. It changes the way units interact with the game. For example, if you run Quake Fray in Beast of Chaos, you can make your Cygor Gorgons into battle line. And then the Cygors become priests, and then they get a unique priest spell, right? So I think that is how I would go about doing a lot of the sub-factions for Seraphon. I think they have a lot of potential for it as well, because they have so many units. You could have, like, a Slan sub-faction. You can have a Saurus sub-faction. You could have a Kroak sub-faction. You could have a monster sub-faction. I mean, they have so many monsters. You could have a Bastiladon sub-faction and, like, a Carnosaur sub-faction. Although that's kind of getting too specific, but I mean, there's so many different ways you can go about this, because they have so many different units, right? Like, even just looking at this now, you could have even, like, a Skink sub-faction. They kind of have them now, but it's so, like, I hate that you have to take this, like, special artifact with it, right? I hate that you have to, it feels a little too, like, it's a little too cookie cutter for me, right? I think I would like something that allows you to open up your play style and kind of, get creative with it. Because that's what I always really enjoy. I enjoy list building, getting creative, having fun. It's what I enjoy in, like, games like Hearthstone and Magic, is just making wacky, kind of fun random. I'm the person where if something is, like, really meta, I don't like doing it. And I don't know why that is. A lot of people are like, oh, this is the meta thing, I got to do it. And then they win. And I'm just like, I just don't like winning with meta things. I'm not that person. I like winning with off meta thing. Like, even in League of Legends when I play, I play Heimerdinger mid lane. Nobody played Heimerdinger when I started playing him. I'm like, this is fun. It's just getting really good at a goofy hero that's still not, he's good, but he's not, like, meta amazing, like everyone's picking him, but you can still do what you need to do, especially if you're knowledgeable about the game. And I think that's what I really enjoy from these types of things, right? Either way, that's what I would like from sub-factions. Now, I want to talk about one of my biggest issues in this army right now, okay? And that is the dinosaurs don't hit hard. All right? So let me tell you, I don't know how this happened. I'm going to read for you the noxious spittle weapon of the Skink Oracle on Troglodon. All right? I can't believe this is, like, even a thing. It is 18 inches, D3 attacks, 3x3, no rend, 2 damage. All right? That is... And then, I think it's, if the unmodified wound roll for the attack made with this noxious spittle or venomous jaws is 6, it inflicts 1 mortal wound in addition to normal damage. Cool. So, And what's his Venomous Jaws? His Venomous Jaws are 3 attacks, 4/2, no rend, 2 damage. Okay, so for some reason, his jaws, these sharp venomous jaws, have no rend. No rend whatsoever. They're literally, I guess they're like dulled down stubs or something, if they're not even biting through skin. And then you have to wound to do mortal wounds. So like your 3 attacks hitting on 4s, so you're only hitting with 1.5 attacks, and then you have to wound with it, so you're doing 1, and you have to hope with that 1 wound you can do a 6 to do 2 mortal, or you do 1 mortal wound in addition to your normal damage, or you're not even hitting. So there's no rend. Okay, and then the Noxious Spittle, D3 attacks, so on average 2 attacks, 3/3, 2 damage. Right? So still, and I was like, okay. Then we go to the shitty small salamanders, and they have 4 attacks each, 3/3, -2 D3 damage. I don't know how they didn't look at this and go like, you know what? This giant venom dinosaur has no rend, but these shitty little resin salamanders give him -2 rend. And you know what? Just D3 damage. And you know what? What about if an unmodified hit roll for an attack made with that attack was a 6? It does D3 mortal wounds. Like, just reading it, like, 4 attacks, 3/3, -2 D3 damage, 12-inch range. That should literally be the profile of the Skink Oracle on Troglodon. That should be the Troglodon's, like, range profile. And then 6s do D3 mortals. Like, that's what it should be. It blows my mind that it's not. And then his clawed forelimbs. This is the same for the other Carnosaur as well. 2 attacks, 2-inch range, 4s/3s, no rend, 2 damage. Claws. Claws. Claws have no rend. Like, this was one of my biggest issues with the Seraphon book, was I want to run this big dinosaur. It's got sharp claws and these like sharp jaws, and you're telling me that his claws have no rend, and then his massive jaws hit for 5 damage if he's not wounded on 3 attacks, 4s/3s, and he only has 1 rend on his jaws? Like, these jaws are hitting for 5 damage, but they're only -1 rend? So I get it. I think this was in a different time as well, right? This was 3 years ago. We weren't even in 3.0 yet. I think the game had, it was harder to hit and wound. There were more rerolls. There were more, synergistic buffs they were doing. And so I think in the 3.0 book, I think the dinosaurs are going to get a lot better. I think they're going to get rend. God, I hope they get rend. And they're going to get rend. They're obviously going to bracket better, because that's been a common theme, is all the monsters and stuff bracket better. They're going to go up 2 wounds, maybe even 4 wounds, depending. Like, they're at 12 right now. I could see them going up to like 14, 16, depending on the type of buffs they give them as well. And, I mean, I think they got the potential to be really fun as well, because this is another thing that Seraphon can really benefit from 3.0 is monstrous actions. If you look at Beast of Chaos and you look at Gits and all this stuff, they have so many fun, unique monstrous actions, right? Or even ogres, right? When you charge in and then you 3d6 and you hop the line and you go to their back line. Or in Beast of Chaos, where like, you're giving your monster bonus rend and the power to heal. Or you're, what was the other one for, Sigor's eating endless spells. Or, there's another thing I run all the time. Is it the Chaos Gargant? No, he doesn't have any. Chimera one kind of sucks. It's just 1 attack to all his things. But the fact that there's unique monstrous rampages, right? I think they have so much potential with the monstrous rampages in this army. Like, for example, you could have the Saurus, or the Carnosaur. You have the Carnosaur have like a thing where he like swipes a bunch of infantry, right? So instead of a stomp, he has a swipe, right? And so instead of on a 2-up, you're doing D3 mortal wounds. Maybe it's on a 2-up. You can only do this to like models with like 1 wound or something, right? Like, or 1 or 2 wounds, like the infantry units. You can't do it like a monster, but you can swipe them and like hit them all, and maybe that does like D6 mortal wounds, right? So you can kind of risk it, or maybe it's D3 plus 3 mortal wounds against them. So you're like, oh, you know what? I can stomp, or maybe the stomp is actually just like stronger against like shitty infantry or something, right? Like, there's some fun little things you can do with that. You can also even like a Bastiladon, maybe a Bastiladon instead of shooting twice. Or maybe even a monstrous action is shooting twice, right? I guess you couldn't. Or maybe you would shoot in the monsters. That would be busted because they can't even all out defense. But maybe the Bastiladons is that it just gets tankier. You know what I mean? Like maybe the Bastiladon's monstrous rampage is that in the combat phase, it gets that 4-up ward. Or maybe it has a 5-up ward and it goes to a 4-up. Or it has a 4-up and it goes to a 3-up, right? So it has like a monstrous rampage where it just like kind of like shells up and gets tankier, right? There's some, or maybe even has a tail whap because it's got that big tail. Maybe it just like and it does like a big tail whap in the infantry. I really like things that like hit infantry. Apparently, I mean, if I sat here and thought for long, I could probably come up with some more creative ones. These are just like off the top of my head, right? Like I think there's a lot of fun ways they can do monstrous rampages in Seraphon, because you have so many monsters. You have literal dinosaurs, dude. You have dinosaurs. So yeah, I would say that's another one. I think even with Slan, I would say my big problem with Slan is that they are pretty squishy. I mean, it's not like a big problem, but because there's ways to protect them. You have like Temple Guard, which, I think makes sense. You need to surround your Slan with defensive things and screen for them, but I do think they'll get a bit tankier, and I think they'll get a slightly better attack than 6 attacks, 4x3 -1/1 damage. I think they'll at least get like 2 damage or D3 damage or something like that. Maybe even like 6 attacks, 3x3 -1 D3 damage, because I mean it's literally Azure Lightning. It should be like zapping stuff, right? And then here's the thing, right? It says currently you add 1 to casting, dispelling, and unbinding. And then there's ways you can get that up to +3 or +4. Like, just give him +3. You know what I mean? Like, Scraggrot, or whatever his name, he's already at +1. He's like 165 points. You've got Thanquil's literally like +2, +3 already. He's like +3 at the start of the game. You're telling me Thanquil is a better caster than a Slan or Lord Kroak? Like at that, if you're comparing Thanquil and Lord Kroak should just get +4 at that point, right? I like again. I think it should just be hard baked into the War Scroll. Like that's just an easy way to go about it, and I think that is what they're gonna do. And then I think Slan. I do like all the Slan spells. I think some of the spells they could kind of rework, but I think a lot of them are pretty good spells, like Comet's Call, Stellar Tempest. A lot of those spells are just fun. I just like those spells. So, I mean, I don't think they have to change too much with the Slan. I hope they don't change too much, but they can definitely get improved. Things like Croxagores, if they get new models especially, I think they'll go up from 4 to 5 wounds. I think they would maybe keep their 4-up save. They might go to a 3-up save, actually. I think a 3-up would make more sense. Maybe they have like a 5-up ward because of, their scaly skin or something, right? Again, like that 5-up ward. I think that would make sense. Nurgle, like the entire Nurgle army has a 5-up ward. And I feel like if you have scaly skin and you're a lizard, like you're probably pretty resilient, like almost Nurgle resilient. I think a 5-up ward, definitely a 6-up ward, but I think a 5-up ward would be fitting. Like I don't think it would be that bad, especially if you're getting rid of their -1 damage. And then, I think my other big thing that I want out of all the things I've mentioned is I want the foot heroes to be good. And specifically, I really hope they make a new Sunblood. I think they probably make 1 or 2 new heroes. I think probably a Sunblood. I don't know if they'll do like an actual new hero or not, but I would rather they redo the current ones, like Sunblood, Old Blood, the Temple Guard guy, I can't remember the name of. But like, look at this, man. This is the Sunblood right now. He's a 5-inch move, 7 wounds, 3-up save, 8 bravery. Okay. I think you'd probably go up to 6-inch move, probably go up to 8 wounds. Dude's got a massive shield. Like, he's literally got a massive shield. And he's got a 3-up save. I think you could even move him to a 2-up save. Like, straight up. Or maybe 3-up save and give him a, give him like a 4-up ward. Like, 3-up save, 4-up ward. Like, this is, he might be a foot hero, but this dude is a scaled out Sunblood guy with a massive shield. Like, he should have a 4 or 5-up ward on top of his 3-up save. I think that's what he should have. Then he's got the Fearsome Jaws, which I don't know how they'll change the Jaws, but they probably will. And then his War Mace is 6 attacks, 3s, -1, 1 damage. Terrible. At least that needs to go up to like at least 2 damage. Like minimum, it needs at least 2 damage on it, man. And then I was saying this in one of my other videos, but I would love to give him the ability that the Skink Star Priest has, or maybe even the Old Blood this ability. One of the Saurus Warriors this ability, which is the 3d6 charge. Because in my mind, a Skink Priest on a throne looking at a ball does not give me the impression of like, wow, he's going to make that unit 3d6 charge, right? I think it's more fitting what they did now, where it seems like he's going to give out wards. Like, if I'm like, oh, does that unit give out wards and like support buff stuff? Like, yeah, okay. But to me, something making a monster charge 3d6 or making a unit charge 3d6, that should come from like a Saurus foot hero, or just a Saurus hero on a dinosaur, just somewhere, some Saurus hero, because you know, charging is like a violent thing, right? You're like, you're charging in, you're like going crazy. And I feel like that would come from a Saurus foot hero. Like, if you listen to if you play Total Warhammer, you know, are you going to feel like you want to charge if you hear a skink be like, blah, 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 blah. You're just like, what the shit? But if you hear like, Kroak, Warden, you're just like, yeah, let's fucking charge, bro. Like, that's, it just, it feels more fitting to me. So I think if they move that to a Saurus Old Blood or Sunblood or something like that, I would really like that as just a more thematic fitting ability. But overall, you know, there's plenty of other stuff, but it's been 30 minutes. I can rant on this for like forever. But I'm hopeful for the new book. I think it is going to be good. All the recent books have been fantastic. I think it's going to be a lot more thematic. I think it's going to have a lot of these changes that are, you know, just quality of life changes as well from 3.0 stuff. And I'm excited to see what they do. And I'm excited to actually build these new models and the new slan and all this new stuff. So thanks for watching and listening. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And tell me your opinions on your or just anything I've said, and then any other stuff you want to add, you know, what you think needs changing, what you think should stay around, and any other stuff you got to comment, let me know in the comments section below. Okay? Okay. See ya.